Hi, I'm Jen and welcome to this week's episode of Chronic Cuppa, bringing back a moment's mindfulness to your week and the return of the office brew. So I'm going to change things up a little bit today, and instead of drinking tea, because you guys know that I don't really drink much of it until the end anyway, right? I thought I'd actually focus on using the time of making a cup of tea, and one of the original mindfulness activities that I first did when I got introduced to mindfulness. So today's mug is just one of my regular mugs that I use quite often, J for Jen from Fortnum and Mason. So with that, I'm going to put the kettle on and start wittering on as usual. So this week I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the things that inspired me when I did the mindfulness or the mindful kettle task, which is when I actually did this activity for the first time, just making a cup of tea like I do every day, I managed to break the tea bag. We've all been there, right? But literally, like, how catastrophic is it when you're in the middle of making your brew and suddenly the bag bursts? And for me, that was really poignant, and I ended up bursting into tears because I just felt like this bag were a person and it were me. And I was like, God bless this bag, it's going through a right time at the moment. So I wanted to kind of think about people as tea bags. Stick with me on this, I do have a point, I promise. And again, that we can be going through our lives doing something really simple, following the same routines, dealing with a lot of the same things that we deal with every day, juggling the same multiple plates, going on autopilot, which I've talked about before in my previous episodes, thinking that everything's okay. And because we do it all the time, because we're so used to it and doing it on autopilot, we don't necessarily see that build-up of when things might start to become a little bit more challenging or change. And it's a bit like when you're making a cup of tea. Although you make a cup of tea, in theory, the same way every single time, each time you do it, it is going to be a little bit different. Maybe the water's going to brew a bit quicker. Maybe you're going to have slightly more or less milk in there than normal. Or maybe you're going to apply a bit too much pressure accidentally to your tea bag when you're letting it brew or steep than you normally would. And before you know it, those tiny small differences or things that you're not even aware of leave you with a broken bag. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you'll notice the bag is broken quite early and be able to do something about it. Or other times, like we've all done, you might end up drinking your tea thinking everything's cracking on as normal, then realise when you get to the bottom of the cup that there are a load of tea leaves floating in the bottom and that you have a bit of a problem. So if, like me, you can relate to a burst tea bag that's maybe feeling a little bit too much pressure, trying to take on a bit too much, trying to react to all of its different surroundings, then please just take a moment to check in with yourself, look after yourself, and work out how your tea bag is doing, and if you think maybe there's something that you need to do, or ease off, or slow up, or maybe just be a little bit more conscious that maybe, you need to just be a little bit more gentle with yourself than normal. So I hope you find that useful. I do encourage you to do this exercise. Don't witter on like I have whilst you do it. Actually take the time to just stand, watch the kettle, observe, really appreciate what you're doing when you're taking this time to actually complete this activity, and see what you come up with. So join me next time for another Chronic Cuppa. But in the meantime, let's sink another drink because it'll give me time to think. See you next week.